Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours for April 22nd, 2026. Hope you're all having a nice spring. And wow, I just noticed that Brian's blossoms and Lucas's blossoms match sort of in your backgrounds. Very interesting. Um, yeah, it looks like Steph's not making it today, so I can run the meeting, and other folks feel free to jump in as necessary. Announcements and highlights since the last meeting. I definitely want to throw out there that we at Fleet saw a customer report that the previous issues that we've seen with Osquery and macOS keychain corruption seem to be much worse in macOS 26. And we are working on fixes to ship, hopefully ASAP, to improve that. I think Lucas is here to chat about it, and we'll talk about that more when we get into the main agenda section. But there's been some discussion in the core channel. I think we're in agreement to cut a release as soon as that gets merged with everything else that has been merged up till now. That would be a minor version release, and then once that happens, we will go ahead and merge the toolchain updates, which will trigger the next release to be the major version release. Any other announcements or highlights that folks would like to bring? Questions, issues, PRs that folks want to discuss?
The reason I joined today was to discuss the Yara bug issue that we created. I'd like to fix it, but there is some debate on how it should be fixed. So I thought it might be worth talking about.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that PR, Brian. If other folks are wondering, that would be number 8835.
Yes, and the issue is 8816, which details the bug. Basically, it's not a bug, but when I added process scanning to the Yara table, it made we couldn't have two required tables. So those two fields, the PID and the path, were made not required. And then, so what happened, I guess, was the query scheduler, or I don't know what you guys call it, but it saw that as an opportunity to optimize out more complex queries. So if you say like select from Yara where path in X or Y or Z, that does not get passed to the table because the query manager or whatever it's called, says I'll handle that after the fact. But that doesn't work for a table like this.
Right. You can't mark it as required because you don't want to require both. But yeah, it calls the generate function without any constraints, and then it figures it will just do the matching later. Yes. Okay, I didn't understand that was the reason for why the issue was happening. So thanks for explaining that to me.
And in the issue, I proposed splitting the tables, which is what that PR did. I just put it up in draft as a proof of concept, but Seth had wanted further discussion, I guess, on whether or not that should be the solution or if the planner should be looked at and updated to account for something like this. And I think that was his last comment in that issue.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So I see. So Steph's comment was that doesn't the same issue apply to the way that you pass the signatures into the Yara table. If you were to do an in there, would SQLite also not sort of properly call the generate function with the constraints? And it sounds very plausible that that same thing would happen. I don't know if you've tested that, Brian, or if Seth's tested that.
I have not. I did not infer that from the comment, I guess, or I would have tested it.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and for anyone else who's following, my interpretation of this would be Brian's original issue is basically now that path is not required. If you do path in /temp/foo, comma /temp/bar, those constraints don't get passed to the generate function, and so then the table, the Osquery table implementation, the Yara table implementation, doesn't know to scan those particular paths. And SQLite just thinks it's going to do the filtering after the results are generated, but that doesn't work because then no files are actually investigated. I think Seth's point is that the same thing could happen if you did where, sig rule equals some rule that you write in there, or sig rule equals, or sig rule in one of those. So that, that is a good point. That could happen, but it does kind of immediately come to mind to me that if that is the case, that's a long-standing bug, and what you're trying to address here, Brian, is a newly introduced bug.
No. I think removing the required constraints from those columns exposed the long-standing issue that you're talking about. And really, I just wanted to address. Somebody created an issue about it to discuss it, and so I didn't want to, ignore it since it was my PR that kind of pushed it forward. So I just wanted to, address it however I could to, do my part, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm completely open to any solution or whatever. I just thought that, I guess further discussion was warranted.
And when you say someone opened an issue about that,
yeah,
I'm confused about that.
It is issue 8816. I should have added it to the
8816. I see as you opened that issue.
Yes, I did open it. It was John Spino that commented on the PR after it was merged. And,
okay.
Yes, I validated the comment and then opened the issue, and that's how that went.
Yeah. Okay. Or path equals.
So I was looking at various pieces of logic. Basically, I was wondering. I see that the Yara table specs defines the path column as an index true column. So as far as I recall, any column that you mark as index or additional, and I forgot that required also did that, but those columns will be passed as constraints to the internal engine, or to the table, the generate of the table, if you are also passing it in the query constraints when you construct the query. And so I was wondering, so here we have currently removed the required true, but you're saying that with a query that contains path as a constraint, that column is not passed to the generate table, even though it is marked as index?
Yes, I have validated that. If you select path, or essentially the only way that I was able to actually recreate that was exactly how the person made the comment, was an in statement. like you say, select path in, and then whether it's a subquery or comma separated, they don't, the generate function just does not see any path constraints.
Interesting. I don't recall if it was working before. The only thing I recall we had is that we somewhat recently, months ago, changed how the in behaved. Like it was an optimization to handle, to pass all the values inside the in list, I think, altogether instead of one by one. And so I don't know, maybe that did something there. But I guess then there's also, I'm not sure, maybe I'm confusing it because we also were talking about the required true, or having two columns be required true on the same table. Is that still like under discussion? Is problem is something separate now?
Well, I think that the problem was it wouldn't make sense. We were sort of overloading the Yara table with what Brian did so that it could both scan process memory and scan file paths. And so you don't want to require both like PID and path. You want to require one or the other. And so it seems like Brian's proposed solution in this PR is like, we'll just split up the table into two.
Yeah. So I do agree. I think it is better to me to have them split, since they, ultimately they have kind of different logic to get to work internally. They have a different logic, plus again the different set of constraints. But yeah, no, sorry. I was recalling there was, I think, in the last meeting, a brief discussion about, but how does it work to have two columns with required enabled? And I recall that the decision, or how it always works on Osquery, is that even though you have both of them, you don't actually require both of them. Just one of them needs to be provided, which is maybe unexpected, because we don't have a way to say the opposite, or the other variation, which is both of them should be true. Both of them should be passed in a query.
Yes, if both are marked required and only one is passed, it's perfectly valid. But it is,
okay.
I think, or it makes everything works at least. But I guess it could make schemas confusing to say that, you have two required fields, since I know those documentations are like generated from the table specs and pushed out for customers, for users.
Yeah, in fact, I did not remember that behavior at all. That's not what I would have expected. Which makes me wonder if we need to be sort of like auditing the schema for tables that have multiple required columns and see if they seem to actually be documented correctly, or like behaving correctly.
If anything, right now, even though it works, having everything in the same table, I think it just is better. Another reason to split and have a clearer behavior right now.
Yeah, I think when I initially saw the PR, I had like a bit of an inkling of like, I would like to see this in a separate table, but I was kind of like, it's fine. But now that the proposal is to actually do it, and there's like reasons observed for doing so, like I'm pretty on board with it. Splitting them. Sounds like Stefano is the same way. And so then back to Seth's comment. Seth's comment was, about like the SIG columns. I think in the case that we believe that splitting by process and path, like memory and file, makes sense. Like I think makes Seth's comment somewhat orthogonal. That like maybe we do need to figure out some better way to manage the requirement of like one of the SIG columns, but
That was
seems
kind of
like
my
going ahead. Yeah, seems like there's some agreement here to go ahead with this approach of splitting the tables. And remind me, I don't think we've released this table yet, right?
I believe it was in the last release, just before the cutoff.
It was in the last release. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let me look at the release notes.
I have to go back and
It's not in the release notes. That was February 25th. We released that. And this
okay.
PR is newer than that, I think.
Yeah. My mistake there.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined before we ship it, since there like is some, at least Stefano and I guess, maybe we can try to get Steph's input. I'm not sure how unavailable he is, but I'd be inclined to try to move forward with this, and probably unless Steph has like some quite significant objections, because right now we've got the opportunity to make these changes before any of this is ever shipped.
And that's perfectly good for me. I guess the question that comes from that though is the issue of the queries being optimized out. Is that something that should be just kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, put it in an issue, document it?
I think that should be investigated for sure.
And then one other I had, when splitting the tables, the Yara table is an established table that people use. So would renaming it to like Yara file scan be an issue, or should it stay the Yara table and add a Yara process scan table? And I don't know how the design decisions go here. So
yeah, and Brian, on that, I commented on the PR. My opinion would be that we alias it to the old Yara name so that people can keep using it, but we rename it by default.
I did not realize there was aliases. Awesome.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, I dropped a comment in the PR. Just have a look. But yeah, I mean, I think generally I'm inclined to go forward with this. It seems like Stefano is. I don't know if other folks on the call want to express opinions. And so maybe, well, I'll leave a few seconds for anyone who does want to express an opinion there.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
okay.
feel like
So
they are
I
slightly
think
different domains, even though the engine behind it is the same. So
yeah. So
even just the
I'll leave a
results.
comment on the PR, and then if Steph has some strong pushback, we'll continue iterating. But I think hopefully we can move forward with your proposal here, Brian, and then we can do further investigation of something that's perhaps a long-standing issue and perhaps continues to plague this table around like the specifying multiple signatures, and maybe affect other tables as well.
Great. I can move. I'll move forward with the PR, address your feedback, and then also I can test the signatures to see if that is also affected as well, and then update the issue with that. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I mean, we already determined it, but to add to why splitting, I was thinking maybe someone wants to disable block a specific, like one but not the other, because
Great point,
the
Stefano.
scanning processes is, or either way, which one is too heavy, or even they do not want to permit that.
Okay, cool. I've commented on the PR there. I think that's Stefano, besides for just sort of like the feeling that I had, I think that's like a very concrete rationale as well. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for bringing that, Brian. Other folks. Philip, I know I saw you said something in the chat about the EFI tables, or like the secure boot certificates.
Yeah, so I posted that issue over to the fleet repo, and you saw that. For people who may not be aware of this, a few months ago we had a discussion about the fact that Microsoft has a 2011 CA certificate that's installed into the secure boot databases. That certificate expires between June and October. There's like 4 different certs. Some of them expire in June, some in October. But there's 2 things to be aware of. Number one is it's not a critical issue to not update them right now, because operating systems that are already installed will continue to function. However, people won't be able to update bootloaders that are signed with the 2011 CA, and you won't be able to install new OSs that are signed with the 2023 unless the 2023 CA is installed into this secure boot database. There's a bunch of issues. There's a bunch more info in the issue that I posted, but basically what this is requesting is the secure boot database has a variety of different CA certificates in it. Most of those are provided by Microsoft or the OEM for that hardware, but users can install their own CA certificate, and that can create some weird stuff at times. Specifically, it can allow things to load with secure boot that maybe people don't want. So what I've requested is, that a table be added where we can see what certificates are installed in the secure boot database. One thing that I think I mentioned in the issue, but I didn't call out very much, or that's not a priority item for us. It's just maybe this could be added in the future as well. The format of the secure boot CA's DB is the same as the secure boot CA's not allowed DB, which ends with a DBX. So it may be in the future, I'd recommend that if we're adding the DB, we also add a table for the DBX, because that in the future, Microsoft will be revoking the 2011 CA, and people will need to monitor that as well. There's a bunch of info from the NIS, NSA, I don't remember, one of those groups, about all of this, if you want more info on it.
Awesome, thank you, Philip. And by the way, folks, Philip provided like a Python script, sort of prototype for retrieving that data. And Philip, I tried throwing that into my agent, and it one shot wrote code that compiled, and
Cool.
seems to work. So
Okay.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I have not had a chance yet to like review that code or
Okay.
or give it sort of any sort of careful review or research
Yeah.
in relation to that, because been focused on other things mostly. But I was pleased to find that certainly was nice to see. Hearing you mention this June date makes me wonder, does that mean we should really try to get that into this release that we're hoping to cut this week? Or if it gets cut, in a release in May or June, are we going to be okay there?
I think you're probably still okay past the June. I should have submitted the issue earlier. Is the real thing. Sorry. The I think getting it into May is probably fine. I think getting it into June will be okay. We are not expecting to see issues initially. We just want to be able to monitor it shortly after June.
Yeah.
So I think, Zach, for you, because we're one of your customers, if Osquery is released in June, does that mean that the fleet agent that we would deploy would be in July? In which case, we'd say, okay, well, can we make sure that it gets in May? That kind of thing.
I think we should try to get it in. I think we should try to get it in the release this week. I looked at the code. I had a cursory look so far at the code that was generated. It didn't look insane to review, so I will try to give that my thorough review today, and then put it up as a PR and see if we can get that merged into this upcoming release, the one that we're hopefully cutting in the next couple of days, and that's basically waiting on the Mac certificate corruption.
Okay. I think the biggest item, I think the item that I was not as confident in when I looked through that and developed it, the Python code, is I have not dealt with byte arrays before. So my experience with byte arrays is rather crappy, and I'll admit I asked a lot of questions of AI trying to figure out what was going on in it. But then I read the spec and thoroughly reviewed, and it's been tested on probably about 100 different computers, and a wide variety of Linux distros. There's probably a way to make that cleaner. I just don't know anything about byte arrays, so I know very little about byte arrays, so I'm not sure if there's a better way to read that. That's the area that if I were to tell somebody, I recommend you thoroughly review that area.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I will take a good look at that. But yeah, I mean, I did see the, in the Python script, like the data looks exactly as I'd expect, and I would imagine if you're having some issues with those byte arrays, we would be seeing garbage.
Yeah.
Or that kind of thing.
I think they're accurate. It's efficiency.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll take a look at that kind of stuff from what the AI generated as well. So yeah, thank you for kind of doing that research. Thank you for bringing the issue to our attention and doing that research, and I'll be happy to try to bring it to production.
Cool.
Yeah. Lucas, I think we were probably hoping that Seth would be here to discuss the certificate corruption issues, although I know that you were experimenting with a new potential approach. Maybe you can just kind of give an update of where things are at, and then we'll have to finish it up. So.
Yeah. So I have PR app with one approach that I'm testing yet. I mean, I still have to test if it fixes the corruption. I'm doing that right now. The approach is basically copying the keychain files. on a temporary location and then use these invasive APIs that, SecOpen keychain, and then corrupt those, right? And then they get cleaned up. We only need to do that copy on the files that are not protected by SSV on Mac, which are like user keychains and then some other keychains. So the good thing is that approach doesn't change the output. We get the same certificates as before. Now the real test is how to check if it gets rid of the corruption. I'm doing that right now. I'll have an answer in a couple hours. The other idea that I brought up, which is like the possibility of a resource leak. I was just testing that right now, and it seems the correction is still happening even if I have those resources cleaned up. So I'm back to the original PR where I do the copy, which is not ideal, but again, Apple leaves us no choice here. I think this is the cleanest approach. Again, copy files, corrupt those copies, and then just remove them after the query is done. And then we also have caching, so it's not gonna be like a bad performance or anything. It's just every 5 minutes we do the caches. We have to recompute that, but probably fine. So yeah, the PR is kind of simple. But again, I want to confirm the corruption is gone. That'll happen in a couple hours. Once that's confirmed, I think we can probably get some review. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, Lucas, and thanks for confirming. Too bad that making sure there was no resource leak did not resolve the issue. But yeah, this has been a long standing issue where Apple has deprecated the APIs that we use. Because of that, seems sort of unwilling to fix the very bad bug that the open seems to allow corrupting the keychain. And the new APIs that are not deprecated don't provide the same data. So if this works, I would be thrilled.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm personally looking forward to the results.
Yep. Sounds good. The PR, I'll send the PR just a sec, just for.
Yeah, and I've got the PR in the agenda.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Lucas. Anyone else have questions, issues, PRs that you'd like to discuss? And okay, I don't see anything. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, sorry. I was just reading through the keychain corruption thing because I hadn't heard of this. Do y'all have an Apple feedback case on getting a new API to read those certificates?
It's been back and forth with Apple for years. I think I don't have I think we've sort of corresponded with Apple through various of our customers, but I don't have like a reference number to give you, unfortunately.
It might be worth getting a feedback number opened and including that somewhere in Osquery docs, or because then Mac admins can duplicate it for you. And help draw attention to it.
Yeah.
We're very good at that.
That is a good point.
And it blows my mind they don't.
Let me ask around to my team if there is a feedback open.
Okay.
Awesome. I don't see anything else on the agenda, so I'll just kind of recap with, we've got a couple of PRs that we'd love to see get merged for the release this week. I think basically all three that were discussed today, I'd like to see get merged. So that's Brian's Yara split refactor. That's my work on Philip's work on the secure boot certificates, and that's Lucas's work on the keychain corruption, which I think is sort of the most critical, since that issue just got much worse in the newer macOS version. And besides that, I think any other PRs that look about ready to go will get in, and everything else will go into the next release, which will likely be the Osquery 6 with the toolchain updates, the sort of uncertain whether the new BPF table replacements will be ready, but it'll either be the removal of the old BPF tables or the sort of replacement of the old BPF tables for Linux. And if any other breaking changes come to mind that folks would like to add into that release, it would be a great time to propose them by issue or pull request, and we'll try to get them in. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your time today, and appreciate all of you, and hope you continue to have a beautiful springtime.
All righty. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.